Green Grease, the waterproof fertilizer-resistant synthetic grease that lasts up to 8 times longer than regular grease. Now available at participating Napa stores, AutoZone, Tractor Supply, and Advance Auto Parts.
On this episode of Tractor Fanatic, we'll have some country fun and check out a bunch of classic tractors at Mike Thomas's Hillbilly Farms.
Welcome to Tractor Fanatic. We're here today at Hillbilly Farms, and owner Mike Thomas is going to show us around. He's got all his tractors right here. He's got all his buddies' tractors right there. And we got the whole community in here eating barbecue and drinking wine. Now, who made this? We're getting ready to have a good time. The first thing Mike said to me when I walked up here was, "Did you eat yet?" It was awesome. We walked in here, right in this building right there. They did all this smoking. They smoked 16 pork butts on this thing. They got a big buffet in there for everybody to eat. We came down, we met all kinds of people in the community, and there's Minneapolis Moline people come from all over to come check this out. So tomorrow they're gonna have an auction. Everybody's in on it. They brought the kids. So Mike, where'd you get the name Hillbilly Farms?
Well, it's something I like because look where we live. When you're a hillbilly, you don't have to be real smart. You just have to be smarter than the guy next to you.
See, if you weren't a hillbilly, these would be in the back, but I noticed you keep them in the front where people can see them. That's the mark. If you had a washer and a dryer out here, that'd be a nice little accent.
Well, you don't want to go that far.
So it was a gathering today of Mike, all his tractors, all Mike's buddies in the community and their tractors. And he knows everything about what's been done on each one of them. I mean, it's a community of guys that sit around and talk about this stuff. And they're talking about this stuff when they're not using their other tractors to farm the land in this area. Now, how many do you have? Do you know?
Several. Just several.
Several? Can we
Just
say
several.
several's the closest
Several.
we're going to get?
Just several.
All right, Mike, this is the first one. Give me the grand tour.
Well, first of all, it's a beautiful day, and we're just thrilled that we've got a nice crowd here at our 210 Winter Convention here in Evansville.
Nice.
Just super thrilled. Started out Molines years ago. My father had a steel wheel Moline that he sawmill with, and growing up here on the hill farm, we raised vegetables, and we had 2 old F20s, but one day we were getting parts at the international dealer for the F20, and this tractor had been traded in on a brand new 806 in the early 60s. And International Harvester had a bunch of used tractors, so there was a young salesman by the name of Jim West. He was a son-in-law to the gentleman that owned the Miller Noshman business over here on First Avenue. So he caught me as a sophomore looking at this tractor. I was a sophomore, and he said, "Sure like to sell you that tractor." And I said, "Well, I don't have that kind of money, $600. He said, "Well, how much money do you have?" And I said, "Well, as a sophomore, $285 in the 60s was quite a bit of money."
That was.
And I said, well, he said, "I can't take $285 for it. What else do you have?" And I said, "Well, I got 2 400-pound calves." And I remember Jim looking at the tractor and looking at me, and he looked back at the tractor. And I think he asked me how big the calves were, and I told him 400 pounds. And he calculated in his mind what were 400 pounds worth. And he says, "I think you just bought a tractor."
That's great.
But he said, "Now, will you deliver them?" I took the calves to them, and my dad was upset because I bought that big tractor. But just within 2 or 3 weeks after I bought it, after I drove it home, he was using it on the sawmill, which is up on the hill. So
oh, that's great.
he used it for years on the sawmill. So it really turned out to be the best thing ever happened to me as far as a tractor to farm with, and my dad used it sawmill. So it was a two-way income. It helped him and it also helped me. Even though we he was pretty fussy about it. Well, I shouldn't have bought it.
Well, dads are always like that in the beginning part
it was
when you
too
do
big.
something.
That's right.
But it's funny too, because it's not, you know, that's not gigantic, but back then that was a big
It was
tractor.
huge. I'll never forget the feeling of sitting in that seat plowing in that field right
Yep.
there.
Yep.
See, Moline had a wonderful motor. It didn't turn the RPM that other tractors turn. It ran slower, and it had a lot of torque. And of course, that was the first time in my life I ever pulled a 3-bottom plow.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the tractor. And it was just a wonderful feeling as a kid in high school, owning your own machine.
You had to be the coolest guy in school if you had,
Well,
you had the big
the girls
tractor.
weren't too thrilled over the Molines. They
Really?
weren't probably too thrilled over any tractor. But,
They were more
it was,
Massey Ferguson
It
girls.
was part of my life. That's it's been an important, and my boy uses it now to grind feed every 2 weeks. So
That's great.
you know, it's not worth a lot of money, but it's
But
very
you won't ever
dependable.
sell it.
It's
You
dependable.
won't ever sell it. It was great today too when he gave me the grand tour, because it was kind of like going to Disney World without the $8 Cokes. He just showed me around, and we just kind of cruised like you'd go on a stroll with your uncle out in the country, you know. We just had a good time.
Very
That's
dependable.
great. This your 950?
This is a tractor that was locally, I think the Saylor farm family at Princeton, Indiana bought it new. They used it for years and years, and they needed something smaller with a cab on it for haying, so they traded it in at the machinery dealership at Rudolph Brothers at Boonville.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thrive on used machinery, and I bought it reasonable, and I just love it. It's my feed mill tractor that I grind cattle feed with, and it also pulls the shuttle buses at the 4-H fairgrounds here in Vanderburgh County. So it's a people hauler and a feed grinder tractor.
That's great. People haulers.
People hauler,
There you
80,
go.
90 on a wagon with a cover, you know, a shuttle. It's
Yeah.
a shuttle. And that's what it used for at the fairgrounds. The grain cart behind it is something we use in the fall to dump grain in, or summer when we're cutting wheat. And that gets the grain from the field to the truck.
Green Grease, the waterproof fertilizer-resistant synthetic grease that lasts up to 8 times longer than regular grease. Use Green Grease on your car, truck, tractor, boat trailer wheel bearings, anything with a grease fitting. Green Grease seals and protects, even underwater. Now available at participating Napa stores, AutoZone, Tractor Supply, and Advanced Auto Parts.
This dually right here.
Yeah, this is probably this is the pride and joy of the Moline end of it when it comes to later models, because it was the Cadillac of Molines, sort of in my opinion. It was the Vista. As my wife one morning read the news, she knew I was looking for one of these. This came from across the river at Lawrenceville, Illinois. The gentleman was named John Dining that bought it brand new. It's got the original duals, the original tires, the original plow. That's the way it came, brand new.
These are original tires.
These are original tires. He farmed over there at a little place called Billet, and he retired, and he advertised it in the Sunday newspaper as a Vista, and my wife knew that I was looking for one, and she said, "Did you see the Vista?" I go, "What?" She said, "There's a Moline in the paper, a Vista." Oh my gosh. So I called the guy and went over and looked at it, and it took a while. I made him an offer, and he said, "Mr. Thomas, do you understand the word firm?" That's what I want for it, and that's just what you got to give. So I got in my truck and left, went out down the road 2 or 3 miles, and the pickup truck I was driving on its own just kind of made a U-turn in the highway, and I went right back in the gravel road, went back to his house, knocked on his door, and he says, "I'm not going to take less."
Did you bring a couple of calves with you?
I didn't have no calves on this. This was strictly cash. And I said, "I came to buy your tractor. I'm going to pay you what you want for it. Solve that."
That's the cool thing about coming out here and meeting guys like Mike, because he's so passionate about everything. He's highly involved in 4-H. He teaches these kids, the next generation, how to do things, how to build things.
Rich Reagan.
On our next episode of Tractor Fanatic, we'll get back out to Mike Thomas's Hillbilly Farms and check out more of his classic farm machinery.